board is to carry out locally the Commonwealth policy to preserve the wetlands and to accommodate economic activity so as to prevent their depletion.
Mr. Waltrip?
Here.
Mr. Gussman?
Here.
Mr. Apperson?
Here.
Mr. Dunn?
Here.
And Mr. Lukens?
I want to make an announcement that Mr. Lucas is participating in a meeting remotely, electronically, and through your communications and through Mr. Wilson's communications, he'll be in contact with the board and be voting with the board.
Yeah, we simply need Mr. Lukens to indicate his presence and indicate where he is participating.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
We need to make sure he's connected.
Technical difficulty.
This is my first experience with this. If he has a question, we will hear it from you. The question is going to be asked by him, or how we would communicate with him.
I believe, Mr. Apperson, that you will be able to hear his question.
Good. Fine.
We're going to have to play that one by ear.
Okay, no problem there.
So at the moment, he is not in the meeting.
Okay.
But you can proceed with the agenda because you have a quorum present.
We're going to deviate from a standard agenda this evening for a pleasurable action. I have a resolution of appreciation to award to a longtime member of the board who has retired. And I'd like to read this and then ask Mr. Hughes to come up and receive from us his plaque. Resolution of appreciation for service to the James City County Wetlands Board and Chesapeake Bay Board. Whereas John Hughes served the citizens of James City County as an advisor to the Wetlands Board from May 1986 to March 2002, and March 2005 to March 2020, and Chesapeake Bay Board from March 2005 to March 2020. And whereas John Hughes served the citizens of James City County as chairman to the Wetlands Board from March 2007 to March 2020. And whereas his knowledge and guidance has assisted the board in rendering fair and impartial decisions to protect the wetlands and natural resources of James City County. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Wetlands Board and Chesapeake Bay Board of James City County do hereby proclaim great appreciation to John Hughes for his dedication, commitment, and exceptional service to the boards and to the citizens of James City County. Be it further resolved that the issuance of this resolution be entered into the official minutes of the Wetlands Board and Chesapeake Bay Board of James City County. So ordered this day, June 10th, 2020, Mr. David Gussman, Chair of the Chesapeake Bay Board, and myself, William Apperson, Chair of the Wetlands Board. John, could you please come up, please? On behalf of the board, I want to thank you for your service. The times that we're in prevents me from shaking your hand. I have sat beside you many a night and listened to your wisdom and good judgment. And I sat there and didn't know what to do till I listened to you. And I've learned from you, and the citizens of the Commonwealth and James City County have profited in a great way environmentally for your actions. I want to say thank you. We've got a framed resolution. Mike has got it for you. Pointing at it. Would you please get it, sir? I really feel awkward that I can't shake your hand because you're a personal friend and you've done one heck of a job. I want to thank you. Mr. Gussman here also has a few words to say. Thank you much.
John, I also want to thank you so much for your service, and I can't tell you how many times over the years we've had a complicated case, and boy, I was stymied. I didn't know how to handle things, and I turned to you, and we'd have these discussions. You always gave me great advice, and always showed me the logical way, a fair way to resolve issues. Sometimes I get awfully emotional, and you always I felt brought me back down to earth. So thank you so much. And I also appreciate your friendship very much.
Thank you again, sir. I appreciate you letting me sit beside you and learn from you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. Moving on with the minutes. Anyone have any corrections, additions, anything to say about them? If not, the stand approved as read. Public hearings. Are we ready, Mr. Wilson? Excuse me, Mr. Long. I'm sorry, I didn't read your code. Public hearing, WJPA 20-0014, 3181 Derby Lane, Bulkhead.
Afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Trevor Long, James City County Watershed Planner, here to represent WJPA 20-0014. Mr. Glenn Horner has applied for a wetlands permit to construct a bulkhead on property located at 3181 Derby Lane within the Drummondsfield subdivision and the James River watershed. Property is further identified as James City County tax map parcel number 45403-00008. There is an existing failed concrete bulkhead on the property that has been increasingly sloughing towards the river over the past 2 years. For this reason, the applicant is proposing to reconstruct a 200 linear foot vinyl sheet pile bulkhead. The applicant has expressed concern that erosion is threatening the structural stability of this patio and rear yard. While there are no vegetated wetland impacts associated with this application, the bulkhead does fall within the Wetlands Board jurisdiction, and it is for this reason that WJPA 20-0014 appears before the board tonight. As published in the Virginia Register on July 11th, 2005, the revised Wetland Mitigation Compensation Policy and Supplemental Guidelines, Regulation 4 VAC 20-39010, Virginia, as a Chesapeake Bay program partner, is committed to achieve a no net loss of existing wetlands acreage and function in the signatories' regulatory programs. In order for a proposed project to be authorized to impact wetlands and compensate for the wetland loss in some prescribed manner, the following 3 criteria must be met. All reasonable mitigative efforts, including alternative siting, which would eliminate or minimize wetland loss or disturbance, must be incorporated in the proposal. The proposal must clearly be water dependent in nature, and the proposal must clearly demonstrate its need to be in the wetlands and its overwhelming public and private benefits. If the proposed project cannot meet one or more of the above criteria, the project must be denied or must occur in areas outside of the wetlands. Should it satisfy all 3 criteria, however, compensation for the wetland loss is required. The sequence of acceptable mitigation options should be as followed: on-site, off-site within the same watershed, mitigation banks in the same watershed, or a payment in lieu of fee. If compensation is required, it should be a condition of this permit. Staff recommends approval of this application, and should the board wish to approve the application, staff suggests the following conditions be incorporated into its approval. The applicant must obtain all other necessary local, state, and federal permits required for the project. All development activities located in the special flood hazard area shall comply with Article 6, Division 3 Floodplain Area Regulations of the James City County Zoning Ordinance and receive all required approval and permits prior to commencement of such activities. That the wetlands permit for this project shall expire on June 10th, 2021, and if construction has not begun, and if an extension of the permit is needed, a written request shall be submitted to the Stormwater and Resource Protection Division no later than April 29th, 2021, 6 weeks prior to the expiration date. This time I'll present a brief presentation. So this project is located at 3181 Derby Lane, as outlined in blue here on the map, within the Drummondsfield watershed and the Drummondsfield subdivision and the James River watershed. A couple aerial photographs throughout the years showing the extent of erosion and the aerial photography of the property. This this breakwater system here creates a beach, 2 beaches essentially on Mr. Horner's property. This is actually a storm pipe that was previously put in. It really does not act as a groin in this situation. At this time, the pipe has been cut off approximately at the end of the beach. and is not functioning. It's the property in 2015 and again in 2019. So the break occurs approximately here. But the bulkhead in question is in this portion of the property. Floodplain as it affects this property. This property does experience wave action with velocity, which is likely the cause of the failed bulkhead and the erosion on property. Topography as it affects this property, sloping downwards from the property towards the rear. And the site plan that has been submitted. In yellow, the proposed bulkhead has been highlighted. And red highlights the mean low water mark. Some site photographs from the property, as you can see, significant undercutting of the bulkhead and some sloughing of sediment. The extent of the failed bulkhead and the degradation that's occurred because of it. This extends outwards to where the existing bulkhead or the proposed bulkhead will extend further past and into this area shown above. So again, staff does recommend approval of this project, given that all other necessary local, state, and federal permits are required for this project, that all development within the floodplain area comply with James City County floodplain and zoning ordinance approvals, and that this wetlands permit shall expire on June 10th, 2021 if written requests for extension have not been submitted to the James City County Stormwater and Resource Protection Division no later than April 29th, 2021, 6 weeks prior to the expiration date. Thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Go ahead, sir.
When does the new guidelines regarding the vegetated shorelines kick in?
July 1, if that is.
Okay,
correct.
July 1.
Yes, sir.
If this came to us after July 1, we wouldn't be able to approve it, I assume. We would have to, we would really be forced to, make him use the living shoreline, I would think.
It would certainly have to be discussed about the living shorelines, but as long as if a living shoreline was appropriate in this situation, then yes, it would have to be required, unless there was a reason why in this scenario a bulkhead would be necessary.
I mean, just from the pictures, it looks like a living shoreline would work, but getting out the old bulkhead, I don't know, would be a lot of work.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Gustman.
Yes.
To further expound upon Mr. Long's response, until the state clarifies exactly what the new law means, it would be somewhat up to the board's discretion as to whether or not the proposed project was appropriate, or whether you wanted to see some changes. The way staff is going to handle cases, just so the whole board is clear on this, anything that is submitted prior to July 1, in our opinion, would fall under the old guidelines.
Okay.
Questions?
Thank you.
Wow. At this time, I'd like to open a public hearing on this application. If anyone in the audience wishes to come forward and speak to this application, please do.
Good evening. My name is Mike Segala. I live at 3193 Derby Lane in Drummond's Field. I have deeded access to that beach. The only question I have is, when is the work actually supposed to start? Prior to the permit being issued or after the permit gets issued?
Which one would you like to answer that?
When Mr. Long and I met with Mr. Horner approximately a month ago, and we saw the patio being undermined, we had great reservations about allowing or not allowing construction to proceed in the area of the patio to stabilize the patio. We did give a verbal on the bulkhead in front of the patio to that work to go ahead and start.
Well, as of this morning, as opposed to last Saturday, the complete 200 feet is installed. So if authorities higher than me approved it, that's fine. I just thought that if I was applying for a permit, that I'd have to wait till the permit was actually in before construction.
Thank you.
Other than that, I'm actually pleased that he's going to protect the shoreline there. So, pretty actually.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Anyone else wish to speak, please? Anyone else will close the public hearing? Some discussion here among us.
I just want to state that if somebody jumps the gun and they don't have the permit, boy, they're taking a risk. You know, sometimes it's something really simple, and we're going to go ahead and, all likelihood, we're going to approve it. But they're taking a chance. If we don't approve it and then they start working on it, then we have legal remedies, and may be in violation of the statute. And we could seek legal remedies. So it's I don't want to encourage people to do that. There may be exceptional situations, but they really shouldn't. They really shouldn't do it, and they're taking a real risk.
It would probably be best to develop a process for like an exigent circumstance like this, where you all feel that that it needs to move forward before getting in front of the board, so that way we can all get together, talk, weigh in on it before, so that way this doesn't happen.
I also want to state I'm going to vote to approve this, but if the project's not completed and it comes back for us and they request an extension, and we have the new regulations and new guidance is out in regard to living shorelines, I may not. I'm going to look really hard at that, and I might not, approve an extension. I may require them to follow the new guidelines. I mean, this is squeaking in at the last minute, but that's the rules we have now, and we're not sure where the guidance is going to take us or how it's going to be implemented. But I encourage the applicant, if we do approve this permit, to get it done within the time frame and not to seek an extension on it.
Thank you.
I think that you need to give this gentleman the opportunity to correct this problem. I don't think we need to hold him back. It looks like it's something that really needs to be done before the whole wall falls down. And I think this board can make a decision that we can honor what we say we're going to do here. And I think if you work on this thing and get it done pretty quick before the whole wall falls down, then he's going to have an expensive operation there on his hands. Looks like we're going to approve this. I would look at it, and if we approve it here tonight, what is the holdup? I mean, I don't see that there's a holdup if we approve it here tonight.
I don't think there is, sir. I can't see any holdup either. I think if we approve it, it's ordinary business, that it's normal to go ahead and get it finished. Yes, sir.
As far as after July, with living shoreline, obligated, I think, if we say fix it, let's fix it. I think that we could go back and say, no, change it, make a living shoreline at that point, unless the work hasn't anything been done to it. Now, if anything hasn't been done, then that would change the status of it.
I think that's Mr. Gusman's point, that inspection to be done within the regulations as we have now. But go ahead and get it fixed. I think that, Mr. Gissman, not to be putting words in your mouth,
Yeah.
but I think that's what you're saying. I think that's right. I think you're exactly right.
I think I concur with Mr. Waltrip, but I do think the gentleman from 3193 said it's pretty much already done. It's already installed, so I think this is it's just a matter of us just approving it. I do agree with approving. I will be interested in the future if we see a case like this with so dramatic undercutting and then also the brick patio. I'm not sure what living shoreline, if we get this brought to us, if the living shoreline would preserve the patio, because if a brick patio is just going to start settling down.
As I understand it, not to say that I have any information that no one else has, doesn't have, but we can still approve bulkheads if bulkhead is the answer, the way I understand what's going to happen to us after July. If a living shoreline is the answer, then that's the answer. But if a bulkhead is the answer, bulkheads are still approved, as I understand it. And that's not saying it's the way it is, but I've made a couple of calls, and that's the information answer that I got. If that satisfies you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the handbook walks through that,
Exactly.
gets you that point.
I agree with everything everyone has said here. I'm going to vote for approval. I will say that I don't know anything about what agreement was made, but I know Mike Wilson personally, and I'm sure whatever agreement was made was prudent at the time and necessary and was used on a good judgment basis. And I will back whatever he said ahead of time to let the man save his property. I think that's what happened. I don't know, but I think that's what happened. I'd like to have anyone want to make a motion on this if we're ready to vote.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution to grant the permit for Wetlands Board case WJPA 20-0014 at 3181 Derby Lane.
Ask you a question, please. I forgot Bob. Is Bob going to speak into this? Or how do we do this?
I understand he's on the line now. I'm going to ask Mr. Lukens to refrain
Please,
from
ask
voting
him
on.
if he wants any comments or anything he wants to say, please.
Well, he wasn't present at roll call, so I'm going to ask him just to refrain from this case, and we'll
Okay,
pick him
okay.
up for the Chesapeake Bay Board meeting. So
All right,
I apologize, Mr. Lukens. We're
Okay.
glad
We're
you
ready
joined
for
us.
vote then.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Mr. Waltrip,
Yes.
Mr. Gussman,
Yes.
Mr. Apperson,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes.
Moving on to board considerations, Mr. Hughes has received his award. Do we have any matters of special privilege that I don't know about, Mr. Wilson? We have a motion to adjourn, please.
Adjourn.
We are adjourned. Sir.
I'd like to call to order the June 10th meeting of the James City County Chesapeake Bay Board. The responsibility of this board is to carry out locally the Commonwealth policy to protect against and minimize pollution and deposition of sediment in wetlands, streams, and lakes in James City County, which are tributaries of the Chesapeake Bay. Mr. Lukens will be participating remotely in accordance with our remote participation policy. Ms. Parman, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Waltrip.
Here.
Mr. Gussman,
Here.
Mr. Apperson,
Here.
Mr. Dunn.
Here.
And Mr. Lukens.
Here,
And Mr. Lukens, can you tell us where you're participating from?
yes, I'm participating from Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
All right, thank you.
One technical note, there's considerable 60 cycle hum on the audio. I don't know if placement of a microphone or something might correct that.
Okay, we will work on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this is a first, and it's going to be a learning experience. First order of business are the minutes from the May 13th meeting. Any additions, corrections, deletions? The minutes stand approved. Next order of business are public hearings, and our first case is CBPA 20-0037, 855 Drury Lane. Mr. Long.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Trevor Long, watershed planner, here to present CBPA 20-0037. Ms. Gail Basler has applied for a Chesapeake Bay exception for encroachments into the RPA buffer for the construction of a carport on property located at 855 Drury Lane within the Diaskin Creek watershed. Parcel was platted in 1987 prior to the adoption of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance in 1990. Total lot size of the property is 2 acres, of which 89% is located within the RPA. The applicant is proposing to construct a carport equating to a total of 624 square feet within the landward 50-foot RPA. Currently, there is no area in which to store vehicles under roof, and it is for this reason that the applicant is proposing to construct the carport on this property. To date, the applicant has planted 12 shrubs and 5 understory trees, therefore exceeding county mitigation requirements for this amount of proposed impacts. Staff has evaluated the application and exception request for the construction of a carport, finds that this application meets the ordinance conditions in sections 23-11 and 23-14, and should be heard by the board because the carport is accessory in nature. The board may grant exceptions to 23-7 if the application meets the following 5 conditions. The exception request is the minimum necessary to afford relief. Granting the exception will not confer upon the applicant any special privileges denied by Chapter 23, Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance of the James City County Code, to other property owners similarly situated in the vicinity. The exception request will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of Chapter 23 of the James City County Code and is not of substantial detriment to water quality. The exception request is not based on conditions or circumstances that are self-created or self-imposed, nor does the request arise from conditions or circumstances either permitted or non-conforming that are related to adjacent parcels, and that all reasonable and appropriate conditions are imposed which will prevent the exception request from causing a degradation of water quality. Staff's view of this application is that it does meet all 5 of the conditions as presented above. Should the board also find the exception request meets all 5 of the conditions above, staff suggests the following conditions be incorporated into the approval. The applicant must obtain all other necessary federal, state, and local permits as required for the project. All development activities located in the special flood hazard area shall comply with Article 6, Division 3 of the Floodplain Area Regulations in the James City County Zoning Ordinance and receive all required approvals and permits prior to commencement of such activities. And this exception request approval shall become null and void if construction is not begun by June 10th, 2021, with written requests for an extension to this exception be submitted to the Stormwater and Resource Protection Division no later than April 29th, 2021, 6 weeks prior to the expiration date. I'll now provide a brief presentation. Sorry about this, slight technical difficulty.
Are you seeing anything on your monitors?
Nothing but the hearing, that's all.
We have ghosts in the computer system tonight. Mr. Chair, I suggest we take a 5-minute break while we figure this out.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you. And some aerial photographs of the property. Again, a fairly large property, 2 acres, 89% of it being located in the RPA. The topography as it affects this site, it's fairly topographically constrained. It's fairly complex topography. Basically creates a finger going out towards the water with steep slopes encompassing the portion of the property adjacent to the water. So here in blue, I've highlighted the proposed project location just up from the driveway. And as I said, 89% of this property being encompassed by a resource protection area and a fairly large ravine in the area of which is not encompassed by RPA. Site plan has been submitted. Here in yellow is the approximate location of the carport and size. And some site photographs from the property. The applicant was nice enough to outline the proposal here in white. And the mitigation plantings that have been planted to date. Again, staff does recommend approval of this exception request, given that all other necessary local, state, and federal permits are required, that all development activities located in the special flood hazard area comply with the James City County zoning ordinance, and that this exception request become null and void if construction is not begun by June 10th, 2021, with written requests for an extension submitted no later than April 29th, 2021. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have this time.
Yeah, go ahead.
You had a slide there. It looked to me like cars were already parked on the area that's designated. So the automobiles are parked there now. They just need a roof over them. That's it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Will it be a concrete parking pad, or is it just going to be a porous surface?
It's my understanding that it will remain gravel, but I will let the applicant confirm that.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Would the applicant like to come forward and address the board? Hi.
My name is Jody Buzzell. I'm a friend of hers and her neighbor. She's surrounded by 3 sides of water. There's gum trees everywhere, and they just fall like popcorn. And I can hear them from my house just popping their vehicles. And it's a metal carport. It's not like someone's going to go there and build something. And that's all she's asking for.
You happen to know the question, is it just going to remain gravel underneath?
Yes, it's going to be all gravel. And she already has it. That picture's got a couple days on it. We've got it completely graveled.
Okay. Any other questions?
You say that the gum tree, the gum balls?
Gum trees.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How do they fall on it if there's no trees?
They're
over
little
top of
round
it?
things, I guess
I
they're
know
called
what they are,
gums.
but if they're not over top of the car, how do they fall on it?
Well, they parking on the driveway, and the
Okay, I
gum
see.
trees line the water.
I got you. Okay,
Yeah, and the
Thank
water's
you.
like 20 feet down.
right. I
From
know
where
the
they're
area.
at.
It's nice up there, and I know the area. It's very
But we
nice up
lived there, and we sold the home to her, and we needed it, but we never did anything with it.
One of the
And now that
nicest
she's
places in the
there,
county to
they've
live,
got
in my
nicer
opinion.
cars than we have.
Yeah. It's a nice place to live too. It really is.
Okay,
So it really is needed, and there's nowhere else on her property you can put it.
Already parked there, so good. Just needs a roof over it. Yeah. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this issue? At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion from the board? Okay, go ahead
I'd
and
like to
make a motion.
that the board vote to approve case number 20-0039. That's not the right one. Sorry, I have the wrong. 20-0037, 855 Drury Lane. And I make a motion that we adopt the resolution to approve.
Mr.
Okay, motion's been made. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Waltrip,
Yes.
Mr. Gussman,
Yes.
Mr. Apperson,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
I just wanted to add real quick before I vote that typically this is accessory nature, and within the buffer area that it's for principal structures and necessary utilities. In this case, it's going to remain gravel, so there's going to be a porous surface. So I'm going to vote yes.
Okay. And Mr. Lukens. I'm sorry, Mr. Lukens, can you repeat that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion carries and the exception is granted. Thank you for coming out. Okay, next case is
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, Bob Lukens here.
yes,
I'd like to make a suggestion for Mr. Long and anyone else who presents that they might indicate when they page from slide to slide. I'm looking at the presentation remotely, and it's hard to maintain synchronization with the presentation.
okay. All right, we'll make an effort there. Next case is CBPA 20-0039, 6312 Adams Hunt Drive. Mr. Long.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Trevor Long, Watershed Planner, here to present CBPA 20-0039. Mr. Sean Berry has applied for a Chesapeake Bay exception for encroachments into the RPA buffer for the construction of a shed and driveway extension on property located at 6312 Adams Hunt Drive within the Powhatan Creek watershed and the Adams Hunt subdivision. Parcel was platted in 1989 prior to the adoption of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance in 1990. Total lot size of this property is 0.58 acres, of which 76% is located within the RPA. In early December 2019, staff became aware of an alleged shed and driveway extension that was constructed in the RPA without approval from the Chesapeake Bay Board. Upon investigation, staff found that a 120 square foot shed and approximately 730 square foot driveway extension had been constructed within the RPA. After consulting with the homeowner, staff determined the absence of permitting was likely a result of a lack of knowledge regarding resource protection area and local ordinance laws and restrictions. The applicant then agreed to apply for an after-the-fact permit for the construction of a shed and driveway extension on this property. The applicant has expressed that while he was not able to reach an individual from the Stormwater and Resource Protection Division to confirm the construction of the shed and driveway extension, he did contact members of various other county departments to inquire about potential issues prior to commencement of such construction. On June 1st, 2020, staff received an email from Ms. Andrea Claxton, an adjacent property owner located at 6305 Adams Hunt Drive, expressing support for the shed and driveway extension. On June 2nd, 2020, staff received a call from Ms. Dorothy Whitfield, an adjacent property owner located at 6317 Adams Hunt Drive, expressing support for the exception request. On June 3rd, 2020, staff received a call from Ms. Melissa Graham, an adjacent property owner located at 6304, also expressing support for this proposal. Due to the fact that this is an after-the-fact permit, staff has required double mitigation for the 850 square feet of impervious impacts from the plantings of the from impacts equating to normal mitigation requirements would be 2 canopy trees, 4 understory trees, and 6 shrubs, which doubled equates to 4 canopy trees, 8 understory trees, and 12 shrubs. To date, the applicant has planted 6 canopy trees, 2 understory trees, and 26 shrubs. Therefore, county mitigation requirements have been exceeded. Staff has evaluated the application and exception requests for the construction of a shed and driveway extension. This application meets the ordinance conditions in sections 23-11 and 23-14 and should be heard by the board because the construction is accessory in nature. The board may grant exceptions to 23-7 if the application meets the following 5 conditions. The exception request is the minimum necessary to afford relief. Granting the exception will not confer upon the applicants any special privileges denied by Chapter 23, Chesapeake Bay Preservation of the James City County Code, to other property owners similarly situated in the vicinity. The exception request will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of Chapter 23 of the James City County Code and is not of substantial detriment to water quality. The exception request is not based on conditions or circumstances that are self-created or self-imposed, nor does the request arise from conditions or circumstances either permitted or non-conforming that are related to adjacent parcels. Reasonable and appropriate conditions are imposed which will prevent the exception request from causing a degradation of water quality. Staff's view of this application is that it does meet all 5 of the conditions as presented above. Should the board also find the exception request meet all 5 of the conditions above, staff suggests the following conditions be incorporated into the approval. The applicant must obtain all other necessary federal, state, and local permits as required for the project. And this exception request approval become null and void if construction is not begun by June 10th, 2021, with written requests for the extension to this exception be submitted to the Stormwater and Resource Protection Division no later than April 29th, 2021. I'll now present a brief presentation. Slide change. Again, the applicant request is to construct a shed and driveway extension as an after-the-fact permit. Changing slides again to the vicinity map. Again, this property is in Adams Hunt, located here in blue. Slide changing to the aerial photograph. So as you can see in this photograph, the shed as it exists. This is the perennial stream running here. Slide changing to the sanitary sewer as it runs through this property. JCSA lift station located behind the parcel. And the topography map as it affects this property. So topography slopes downwards towards the resource in the back of this property. Slide change. And the resource protection area as it affects this property. Again, this property was platted in 1989 prior to the adoption of the Chesapeake Bay Ordinance, putting the proposed extension and shed in the RPA. Site plan as it's been submitted, the driveway extension highlighted in the first yellow box and the shed in the second yellow box. Some site photographs from the property, the shed. Slide changing to the second photograph of the shed. Driveway extension and the shed. And some photographs of the mitigation that has been done on this property thus far. And staff did double mitigation for this property due to the fact that it was due to the after-the-fact nature of this proposal. Should the board wish to approve this, the following conditions should be incorporated into its approval. all of the necessary local, state, and federal permits be acquired, and that this exception request become null and void if construction is not begun by June 10th, 2021, with written request for an extension submitted no later than April 29th, 2021. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
I have a question. So, did the landowner do his own driveway?
It's my understanding that a contractor provided the materials and constructed the driveway, but I'll let the applicant correct me if that is incorrect.
Is that a concrete driveway?
Yes, sir. Concrete and
Over
asphalt.
to the shed? Oh, that's concrete.
Yes, sir.
Pretty severe move without getting a permit.
It's a big driveway. I'm not sure I would have approved this. Okay. No other questions? Let's open the public hearing.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to come forward and address the board?
My name is Sean Berry. I'm the homeowner. I live at 6312 Adams Hunt, and I appreciate your time, and I apologize about this. I assure you, I never would have done this construction had I known that I was an RPA and I wasn't allowed to. When I initially purchased the property in 2017, my goal, because my wife was pregnant, was to ease that buffer. There's a transition in the topography that goes in to where the easement is, and I was informed about that. I reached out to various county departments to try to get topsoil to ease that transition. It goes down about 7 feet. That's when I was made aware about the easement and about the constraints. I asked for all the data I could about the property so I can be more informed, because I didn't want to live with an HOA. I chose Adams Hunt because there was none, and I did not want to have anything like this, I assure you. Everything that came over were plots, etc. None of it let me know about RPA, so my apologies about this. When I constructed the shed, I reached out to the county and I was told 10 by 12, you're allowed to do that. And then when I asked the contractor about putting it as a, I don't know if they're synonymous, but it is that concrete. I assume that's not concrete, that's all asphalt, sir. I can't afford concrete. But I made it for a play area for my son, and it makes it safe. It's large in nature, I get that, but with that said, it's 125 feet wide, my backyard. So in proportion to other properties, and with the buffering and where I put that mitigation efforts, I hope you can allow this, because I get it. It's an RPA zone, but with that said, I've double mitigated and will continue, and we'll leave it open for inspection with Mr. Long and Mr. Wilson. Do you have any questions for me?
Who is your contractor?
This was, I had Lowe's do the shed, and I had Williamsburg Paving do the asphalt.
You said you reached out to the county and they had no objection?
They had no objection to my shed, no, sir. And then when I reached out to the contractor regarding getting the asphalt done in the backyard for the driveway extension, he told me that he does business all the time and that you don't have to have a permit. My Google research shared with me that I did not have to have a permit for a driveway. The key thing is about ignorance of the RPA, which again, I apologize for, but I assure you, I did not do this intentionally. But with the double mitigation efforts and the size of the lot, I hope you can allow this. Because frankly, what would be the alternative? I've been furloughed from my employer since March. I don't have the resources, gentlemen, to go ahead and allocate discretionary income that's safe for savings. I don't know what the next chapter is going to bring to tear it apart. And upon inspection, you can see it's aesthetically pleasing and it's functional. It's a good player. It's safe. But I'll be happy to do more mitigation, anything that is asked of me by the board.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to speak on this issue?
Hello, yes, my name's Richard Cox. I'm a resident as well at 6313 Adams Hunt Drive. I'm here to show my support of Mr. Barry's request for his exception. I've only lived there for a short period of time. I will also say that I had a little bit of difficulty understanding the RPA, and I'm fully aware of my responsibilities to be informed of my deed, but it was just an oversight on my part as well. I am informed now, so I do know what's required, but I just want to show my support of Mr. Berry and his request for the exception. I have no objections to his shed visually. I have no objections to his driveway aesthetically, visually, but I understand your role with regards to protection of the watershed. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on this? At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion from the board? Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Mike Wilson, Senior Watershed Planner. I just want to, since we have several new members of the board and several new homeowners, I just want to give a brief rundown of when the ordinance changed and what our policies were at that time. The ordinance, as you know, changed in 2004. This subdivision was impacted at that point in time with the new ordinance revision and the new definition of perennial streams and wetlands adjacent to those perennial streams now being resource protection area features. At that point in time, back in 2007, when staff finally had everything preliminarily mapped in the county, we sent letters out to the property owners of record at that point in time saying, hey, you now have RPA on your property, just wanted you to be aware, so on and so forth. Clearly, Mr. Berry did not own the property in 2007. He said he purchased it in 2017. I just want to make sure that the board, the new members of the board, and the new homeowners understand the timeline that things transpired here. He is correct in that the RPA would never show up on his plat unless it was replatted. The RPA when his property was platted in 1989 did not exist. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this timeline.
Sounds like it's a little confusing on his part, and maybe everybody's part.
In the older neighborhoods, yeah. It can get a little confusing.
I don't think this board here is trying to put this gentleman back. I'm not supporting tearing all that up. I mean, what little bit's there and with the confusion and stuff going on with this whole project is what it is, and the neighbors are not complaining. And
doesn't make much. Well, what the neighbor's opinion of the situation is not the deciding factor for me, but I don't see any deception on your part. And I think it was an honest mistake. I think that mistakes can be given. That's my position.
I'm the newest member of the board, and I agree. The legislature, all these rules can be difficult to follow and understand when it applies. It is my understanding though that when you purchase a home now, you're informed that there is wetlands on your property. Is that correct? And I appreciate you accepting responsibility, and coming forward. I find that commendable. And I also, though, look at the contractor. They have to. There's a responsible land developer certification from James City County, correct? And part of that is knowing where the wetlands are when they're building. And, I find this a reoccurring pattern that we keep getting these, the contractors saying, "Oh, you're good to go," and doing it. I don't know if this is something we can pursue later, but have the contractor come back and redo their certifications if they can't, figure out where the wetlands are. I'd say.
In reviewing this, I don't think I would have approved this if this came in front. I would have liked to see it minimized. The pad is just too big. Shed is okay. That's a standard shed. Everybody has them. It's a small shed. That would impact. I would have argued, I would have pushed to maybe have this reduced, have a porous driveway, put in or, mitigate the impacts more. I don't think I would have approved this. But it's there and, a mistake was made and, and I'm looking at, all right, so what's the environmental impact? I don't know. I think there's sometimes I feel we would be justified in order it to be torn up. And I realize that's a lot of aggravation, a lot of headache and a lot of cost. I don't know, but we use our best judgment and looking at this, I don't know, it's a big lot. It's a grassy area behind it. And, I'm just looking at even with this large pad, there's probably going to be minimal impacts to water quality. When you think about it, there's a lot of, they've doubled the plantings. There's a large grassy area. As a scientist, if you went in there and looked at the runoff and tried to measure any differences in the water quality, I don't think you would see it. So in this case, I think I couldn't go ahead and vote to give them the permit after the fact. But, with the caveat, if you put in a garage back there, make sure you get the permit ahead of time. Don't. Okay. Any other buildings or projects back there, you do more than once. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. Make a motion to, let's see. I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution to grant exception for Chesapeake Bay case CBPA 20-0039 at 6312 Adams Hunt Drive.
But before we vote, Mr. Lukens, I keep forgetting about you, not seeing you here. Any comments or?
I feel I agree with your comments on the large area of the driveway and its impermeability. One other thing of note is the last photograph showing the mitigation. I believe that's on the low side of the property. But in any case, that particular area shows a lot of incipient erosion, and as much as anything, a note to the owner that he may well want to keep an eye on that, and perhaps finds. I don't know what kind of robust ground cover might be useful there, but that's some sort of a living cover there to reduce that level of erosion would be good. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Did you catch his comments about watching out for erosion on your property and? You can talk to the staff afterwards about plannings, or they'll have suggestions for you to help to control runoff from the property. How you can manage that through plannings or other methods. Okay, can we have a roll call?
Yes. Mr. Waltrip?
Yes.
Mr. Gussman?
Yes.
Mr. Apperson?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Lukens?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Our next case is CBPA 20-0042, 117 Braddock Road.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Trevor Long, Watershed Planner, here to represent CBPA 20-0042. Mr. Cord Gray has applied for a Chesapeake Bay exception for encroachments into the RPA buffer for the construction of an above-ground pool on property located at 117 Braddock Road within the Mill Creek watershed. Parcel was platted in 1968 prior to the adoption of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance in 1990. Total lot size of this property is 0.48 acres, of which 75% is located within the RPA. The applicant is proposing to construct an above-ground pool equating to a total of 530 square feet within the landward 50-foot RPA. The required amount of mitigation for this amount of impervious impacts equates to the plantings of 1 canopy tree, 2 understory trees, and 3 shrubs. During a routine inspection of the property, staff found that the pool was already constructed and in place prior to the Chesapeake Bay approval and the issuance of a building permit. For this reason, required mitigation for an after-the-fact permit of this size would be plantings of 2 canopy trees, 4 shrubs, and 6 understory trees. Staff has evaluated the application exception request for an after-the-fact permit of the construction of an above-ground swimming pool and finds that this application meets the ordinance conditions in sections 23-11 and 23-14 and should be heard before the board because the pool would be accessory in nature. Board may grant exceptions to sections 23-7 if the application meets the following 5 conditions. The exception request is the minimum necessary to afford relief. Granting the exception will not confer upon the applicants any special privileges denied by Chapter 23, Chesapeake Bay Preservation, of the James City County Code to other property owners similarly situated in the vicinity. The exception request will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of Chapter 23 of the James City County Code and is not a substantial detriment to water quality. The exception request is not based on conditions or circumstances that are self-created or self-imposed, nor does the request arise from conditions or circumstances either permitted or non-conforming that are related to adjacent parcels. Reasonable and appropriate conditions are imposed which will prevent the exception request from causing a degradation of water quality. Staff's view of this application is that the original request did meet all 5 of the conditions as presented above, however, was constructed without proper approvals and permits within the time frame that was given to the applicant. Should the board find that the exception request does, however, meet all 5 of the conditions above, staff suggests the following conditions be incorporated into the approval. The applicant must obtain all other necessary federal, state, and local permits as required. A mitigation plan equating to the plantings of 2 canopy trees, 4 understory trees, and 6 shrubs be submitted to the James City County Stormwater and Resource Protection Division. A surety of $1,000 be paid and in place prior to the commencement of work in a form acceptable to the James City County's Attorney's Office. The application fee of $125 be paid prior to the issuance of a building permit. This exception request approval will become null and void if construction is not begun by June 10th, 2021, with written requests for an extension to the exception be submitted to the Stormwater and Resource Protection Division no later than April 29th, 2021, 6 weeks prior to this expiration date. Now I have a brief presentation. Again, the applicant request was to construct an above-ground swimming pool, now and after the fact permit request. Property located at 117 Braddock Road, here outlined in blue. Aerial photograph of the property in question, and the arrow pointing to the approximate location of the pool, with the resource running behind it. Topography as it affects this property, sloping back towards the right-hand corner of this property. And the resource protection area as it affects this property, again, approximately 75% of the property being encompassed by resource protection area. Site plan as it was submitted, the 100-foot resource protection area outlined here in red, and the pool, excuse me, I'm sorry for the mislabeling, outlined here in blue. Pictures of the pool that were taken on June 5th. Should the board should the board choose to approve this project, the following conditions should be incorporated into its approval. All other necessary local, state, and federal permits are required. Mitigation plan equating to the plantings of 2 canopy trees, 4 understory trees, and 6 shrubs be submitted to the Stormwater and Resource Protection Division. That a surety of $1,000 to ensure the plantings is made out to James City County. The application fee of $125 be paid in place prior to the issuance of a building permit. This exception requests approval become null and void if construction is not begun by June 10th, 2021, with written request for an extension submitted no later than April 29, 2021, 6 weeks prior to the expiration date. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Good question. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Would the applicant like to address the board?
Hello, sir. First of all, I would like to apologize because, we put up the pool before anything was approved, but due to the COVID-19, I had the installation of the pool scheduled twice, and then everything was taking time, and then the guy told me if I reschedule again, he didn't have any window open until September 19th. So because there are 4 kids involved in this situation and the summer was going to be over, I took the risk and, told the guys to install the pool. I really apologize for that, and I'll just, say this, whatever it is.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this issue? This time I'll close the public hearing. You took a chance there, but with 4 kids waiting for the pool, puts you in a tough position. I understand that. You heard my comments earlier. Don't let this happen again. If you're going to build anything else back there, you understand you have an RPA and you have to come to the county and get the proper permits ahead of time. Any discussion from the board?
Sir, I can't.
I think we'll just go with 19. Got to give kids a little bit of break.
Yeah, these are tough times. Kids are out of school. But okay. And any discussion among the board?
This is just the night of everyone's doing construction before stuff's getting in front of the board.
I'm going to make some comments when we get to matters of special privilege on that.
Okay.
Mr. Lukens, any comments?
Nothing further except to sort of echo the concerns of, I'm not sure who made it before, concerning contractors and their apparent ignorance of construction in RPA.
Okay. Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please? Oh, do we have a motion? A motion? Go ahead.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the board adopt CBA 200042 Braddock Road Swimming Pool.
Mr. Waltrip?
Yes.
Mr. Gussman?
Yes.
Mr. Apperson?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Lukens?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. You have the permit. Thanks for coming out. We have no, let's see. Do we have any board considerations tonight?
Afternoon, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have one extension request. Mr. Stockdale Anthan has requested a 1-year extension to CBPA 19-32, originally granted on June 12th, 2019. Due to expected changes in the construction sequence of his timeline, he is requesting this extension take place. Correspondingly, CBPA 19-0091 was also granted for this property and associated with this project on September 11th, 2019. The applicant has also requested that we combine these two extension requests into this one exception. Staff does concur with this request with the stipulation that all permit conditions, except for the expiration date, be reauthorized and the new date of the expiration be June 10th, 2021. I have put together a brief presentation to outline the extension request. So the two exception requests as previously approved by this board on June 12th, 2019, CBPA 19-0032 appeared before this board and was approved to construct a detached garage. On September 11th, 2019, CBPA 19-0091 was also approved by this board to construct a driveway providing access to the garage. A vicinity map of the property outlined here in blue. And an aerial photograph showing the location of the proposed improvements. Site plan above, the original request to construct a detached garage in this square here with a existing deck in orange. The original request included access from the JCSA easement, which was not granted by JCSA, leading to the exception request to build a driveway for access. The permit conditions that are still in place for the two of these exception requests are that the applicant obtain all other necessary federal, state, and local permits as required for this project, that a surety of $1,000 be paid and in place prior to the commencement of work. This exception request approval shall become null and void if construction is not begun by June 10th, 2021, with written request for an extension submitted to this division no later than April 29th, 2020, 6 weeks prior to the expiration date. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Questions? Any discussion on this? Someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion, Chairman, I make a motion to approve the extension request CBPA 19-0032 at 3884 Fox Run.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Waltrip? Mr. Gussman?
Yes.
Mr. Apperson?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Lukens?
Yes.
Okay, the extension request is granted. I believe that concludes our board considerations. Under matters of special privilege, I want to make a few comments. It's very distressing that tonight we had 3 cases that were after the fact. We've had an occasional one before, but 3 in one meeting is a lot. I'd like us all to maybe think about maybe it's time we do some kind of outreach effort to the community. And, these folks, I don't think we're trying to get anything past the county. I think they were all honest mistakes and, made by law-abiding citizens. And maybe we need to do a new round of communication. I don't know how to, I'd like everyone to think about it, and maybe we can either have a work session or just have like a subcommittee, have a phone call or something, but if everyone would give it a little bit of thought, and at the next meeting, if the staff will think about that, if the staff has some proposals, let's put it under matters of special privilege for our next meeting and decide how we can proceed on this, how we can get the word out.
Good point.
Okay. All right. Anything else anybody wants to bring up?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just want to let the board know and also the Wetlands Board know that there will not be a July meeting. There are applications submitted in time.
Okay. All right. Can we have a motion to adjourn? Okay.
So moved.
So moved. We are adjourned.